Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today, we're talking about manipulation. So without further ado, let's hop right in. Welcome to the podcast. I'm your host and executive coach, Adam Melnick. With over a decade of experience in mental health, leadership, and coaching, I aim to help you understand leadership through a mental health lens. So let's sit back, relax, and have a chat. I'm going to teach you how to manipulate somebody. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about what is manipulation. When I used to work out in community, I worked on an assertive community treatment team. It had general physicians, psychiatrists, social workers, psychologists, occupational therapists, recreational therapists, art therapists. And we were an interdisciplinary team working with a caseload of 83 patients and helping them improve their lives. It came out by one of our social workers that what we were doing was kind of manipulative. We were meeting with our patients once a week, and we were doing things such as motivational interviewing or cognitive behavioral therapy and altering our patients' thought patterns. We were altering their beliefs. And when we took a step back and we looked at it, it became this question of, are we manipulating somebody? The answer was no. Therapy, although similar to manipulation, is distinctly different. And here's the reason why. Manipulation is the art of altering someone's thoughts, feelings, or beliefs for your own benefit. Let me repeat that again. Manipulation is the art of altering someone's thoughts, feelings, or beliefs to benefit yourself. In therapy, when I sit down with one of my clients, I'm altering their thoughts, feelings, or beliefs to benefit themselves. And that's why it's not manipulation. This is why coaching isn't manipulation. When you come and sit down with me, I will change how you think and feel about the world. This is normal. But it's not to benefit me, the coach. It's to benefit you because you have a goal that you want to achieve. And that's the unique difference. When you are changing somebody to benefit yourself, you are manipulating. And I promise you, you have manipulated somebody. Truthfully, I can stand up here all I want and say, you should never manipulate anybody. But the reality is that you have manipulated somebody and you will do it again. And sometimes manipulation isn't necessarily wrong. For example, imagine a child trying to buy a toy from the toy aisle, and they're stamping their feet and they're like, Daddy, 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 or Mommy, 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 I want to buy the toy, I want to buy the toy, I want to buy the toy. But you can't afford it. It's outside of your budget. So what do? You manipulate the child and you distract them and you say, oh, that's such a lovely toy, but hey, there's some cute ice cream over here that you might like. Why don't you go have an ice cream cone instead? And that might be financially reasonable for you. Did you manipulate the child? For sure. Would we consider this good parenting? Absolutely. Manipulation is not all bad, but it's definitely not good. There will be times in your career that you will have to manipulate somebody. I promise you that. I absolutely promise you that. But here's something I need you to understand. When we look at manipulation through a leadership lens, manipulation is a short-term tactic that people use to get their way. This is a short-term tactic. This is not long-term. Do not manipulate people long-term. It will not end well for you. It never does. When we manipulate, keep in mind that this is a short-term tactic. And the reason for that is because people know when they are being manipulated. You know when you're being manipulated, and I know when I'm being manipulated. Consciously, they may not understand it, but subconsciously, The average person for sure understands that they are being manipulated, and they don't like it. See, when you are being manipulated, you feel awful. You feel this icky feeling, like you don't really appreciate what happened. There's a sense of wrongness about the events that just transpired. And you're not going to be able to shake it. The more often that individual continues to manipulate you, the more this feeling's going to grow. And the thing is, you're going to want to avoid that individual. Because again, you don't like this awful feeling. And this is what I mean by it's not a long-term tactic. Individuals like borderline personality disorders, antisocial personality disorders, narcissists, these guys are chronic manipulators. Short term, they will always get their way. Long term, it always comes back to bite them in the ass. These individuals typically don't have a large friendship circle. Why? Because they manipulate all their friends. They screw them over for their own personal benefit. So nobody wants to hang around with somebody that is actively screwing them over. And then on top of that, many manipulators struggle to hold down a long-term job. And the reason is because they're manipulating those at the job site. Many master manipulators, unless it's a very toxic work environment, will jump from job to job to job to job to job because eventually they get found out and then eventually they get removed one way or the other. See, it's not a long-term strategy. It doesn't work long-term. Manipulation is very short-term. And the reason why people start manipulating is for a plethora of reasons. The first one is that they grew up in a household environment that required them to manipulate. It's a survival mechanism that they created within themselves to live within a hostile environment. We also see this on the job site. When a job is very cutthroat and underhanded, and in order to rise through the ranks, you need to develop manipulation, a survival mechanism in order to succeed. We'll also see a lot of manipulation when resources are scarce. If your people believe that resources are limited and that they have to fight tooth and nail in order to obtain said resource, whatever it is, there will be manipulation involved. There will be manipulation when a position opens up or a power vacuum in your leadership circle because people are going to be jockeying for that power. Or maybe it's an advantage that they want over their fellow colleagues. Because again, as a manipulator, you're in it for you, yourself. And what you're really looking for is you're either looking for power, influence, maybe more resources, an advantage up on your competition, and you're ready to use underhanded techniques to get from point A to point B. When we look at a team, a job site, or an organization, it's important to note, however, that a lot of manipulation happening at the job site is indicative of toxic workplace environment. It means that leadership has let things go and have created almost a Game of Thrones environment where it's a dog-eat-dog world. In the short term, this cutthroat environment can be phenomenal because it can drive up profits and revenues. If this is a sales team, what you'll see is skyrocketing profits and sales, but it's a short-term tactic. Always remember that. It's short-term. Long-term, you will create a toxic work environment where the individuals that are truly skilled, the ones that are truly passionate, collaborative, and creative will leave your organization. You will suffer brain drain. You will lose your profits. And if not attended to well, it could be the destruction of your company and or organization. Long term, you are shooting yourself in the foot by creating this hyper-competitive environment where you've let rampant manipulation run free and wild. If you would like to survive long term, you cannot manipulate. Let me repeat that. You cannot manipulate if you would like to succeed long term. It does not work. Forget everything that we just talked about. Forget that manipulation is a short-term tactic. Forget that this is going to screw you over long-term. Forget that it's exploitative. And forget that the other person that we are dealing with is a human being with hopes, dreams, opinions, and emotions. Think of them more as a tool to manipulate. Something to get us from point A to point B, a victim for us to prey upon. If this sounds predatory, it's because it is. Nothing about manipulation is nice. Manipulation is not about building a team. It's not about being collaborative. It's not about building a future. It's about what we want. See, because manipulation is all about us and benefiting us, we need to first get clear in our head, what do we want out of this? This could be power, it could be influence, it could be status. Maybe there's resources or money at stake. Maybe it gives us an extra advantage over the competition, that parking stall closer to the door that nobody else has. Maybe our desk is closer to leadership or our bosses so we can have their ear and are more likely to get a promotion. It does not matter. What matters is that we want something and we are willing to use underhanded techniques to get that thing. We need to be clear what it is we want. The average manipulator is rather unsophisticated, and they work in their subconscious mind, where, for example, with borderline personality disorder, they have abandonment issues. And so they manipulate the people around them either to keep them in their life or to push them away because they're afraid of that abandonment. If we're a little bit more sophisticated of a manipulator, we have what we want in our conscious brain. We are aware of what we want. Maybe it's a leadership position. Maybe we want to get somebody fired. Maybe it's to line our pockets with a little extra cash. I don't know. But if we're sophisticated, we know exactly what we want before we start manipulating. The next phase is we need to look for our victims. These are individuals that are tools that we can prey upon. These are individuals that have some power or influence that we can start pulling apart and forcing them to do what we need them to do. When we identify who these individuals are, we need to get to know them. We need to get to know their likes and their dislikes, what motivates them, their thoughts, their beliefs. What are they passionate about? What is their weakness? What do they fear? We need to understand this individual because they have buttons that we can push. If they're scared of management, we can put them in a position where they are forced to choose between our help or management. And because they are scared of management, they're more likely to turn to us, allowing us to prey upon them further. If they are motivated by money, a simple bribe to get them to do what we want may be in order. And through that, potentially blackmail in the future. Doesn't matter. We need to know their buttons. We need to know their levers and how to push them. If they're an activist and they're passionate about social justice issues, guess what? That's a button. We can use it to our advantage. But you have to be careful because when we are talking to our victim, we need to give enough information about ourselves to make it appear as if we're friendly, but still restrict the information that they know to keep us protected. We want to learn about their weaknesses. They don't need to know ours. We need to know about how they tick. They do not need to know how we tick. And from there, we can start pushing buttons and pulling the levers to force them to do what we want. And we can use our tactics to gain leverage over our victims. The first tactic that we can use to really manipulate somebody is to isolate them. Cut off their healthy relationships. Because by cutting off those healthy relationships, we can feed them a distorted view of reality, warping their opinions, their thoughts, and beliefs, allowing us to manipulate them much easier. We can do this by simply gaslighting them, which is feeding them a false reality continuously and, again, warping that sense of reality within their life. I don't like that you talked down to me at the conference. I didn't talk down to you at the conference. I actually said very glowing things. No, you said awful things to me. No, I didn't. I said very nice things about you. I don't know what you're talking about. What? I thought, what? Didn't you say something mean? No, I said things that were quite nice to you. In fact, I stroked your ego and people thought very highly of you by the end of the conference. When in reality is, no, we did speak very poorly of them, and we gossiped, and we damaged their reputation. Gaslighting. We can gossip behind their back, to their friends, or maybe to the individual directly, telling them untrue things that their friend had said about them, causing rifts and infighting. It doesn't matter how we cause the rifts and infighting. What matters is that we cause them, pushing our victim away from their healthy supports. Because again, we need to isolate them. We need to remove the safe people, the people that are grounded in reality, away so we can distort our victim's reality. We can use triangulation as a way to pull a third party into the conversation, an attempt to either deflect responsibility or maybe to team up against the victim, or potentially do the drama triangle. Triangulation is a fabulous manipulating power that I see consistently at the workplace. Don't be afraid to use it. Pull that third party in. Get that third party on your side, and now it's 2 versus 1. We can use that to our advantage, especially if we have a third party that's dumb or ignorant or easily manipulated. We can pull them in because they're a tool to be used so we can continue to prey upon our victim. From there, we can project emotions onto our victim. You look angry. You look upset. You look angry. No, I'm not angry. No, you look angry. What's wrong? You look so angry. The victim's not angry. We're angry. And we're going to give them that emotion. By giving them an emotion that they don't fully understand, it allows us to start twisting reality. Because again, we're trying to twist things. This is very malicious what we're doing. And by giving them an emotion and them accepting it, it can cause some irrational thinking and force them to take stances on opinions or subjects that they may not consciously want to take opinions on, giving us leverage to continue to manipulate them. When we understand projection, you will honestly see it everywhere. The next tool within our tool bag is coercion. It's to make someone else believe that the consequences of not doing what you want are worse than doing what you want. For example, if you're lining your pockets at your job to make your paycheck fatter and your colleague finds out about it, all we have to say to them is, listen, man, you can go to management and you're more than welcome to do so, but just understand you are a part of this as well. It was under your watch that these funds went missing. As a result, you're going to lose your job just like me, and you're going to be lumped in as the problem. It's much easier if you just sweep this under the rug and pretend it didn't happen, for both our sakes. This is coercion at its finest. It is a fabulous manipulation tool that we can use to alter someone's opinions, thoughts, or feelings. And lastly, one of the techniques that we can use is social comparison. We compare our target with someone else and guilt them into doing what we want. Preferably, we should guilt them with somebody that our target admires. If we have done our job correctly as manipulators. We will have preyed upon our victims successfully. We will have changed their thoughts, feelings, and beliefs on whatever we wanted to let us get ahead. Meaning, in the short term, we have won. Let's come back to the original part though. Keep in mind that what you have done is malicious. What you have done has consequences. What you have done will be remembered by the victim. Short term, you may have won. Long term, you will be screwed. I have seen it time and time again. If this conversation about manipulating somebody felt awful and icky inside of you, congratulations, you're human. That is the normal response. This should not be fun. There are other manipulation tactics, but we're not going to get into it. What we will briefly get into is how to defend yourself against these manipulators. And all we're going to do is walk backwards. Remember, if someone's manipulating you, there's a goal. When someone's talking to you, think, what do they gain from this? If they gain nothing from it, they're probably not manipulating you. But if they have everything to gain from it, be cautious. Be aware of yourself, your own buttons, your thoughts, your feelings, your dreams, things that trigger you. Because if you're aware of your buttons, it's harder for somebody else to push them. Be aware when somebody's talking to you and they're asking you all these questions but giving you very little information about themselves. Why? Probably because they're digging for information from you and they're looking to manipulate you. Be careful of that. Look at your social circle. Are you getting further away from them? And if you are, why are you? Is somebody poisoning the water? It's very common for a manipulator to try to isolate you one way or the other. When you feel like your walls are closing in, it's time to stop and look around and see what's going on. Do not doubt yourself. Do not doubt your sense of reality, because when you're being preyed upon, you will feel awful. Your reality will be warped and you need to reach out to your support network, whatever that may be, and get a grounded sense of what's actually going on. When you understand what's going on, now we can start doing something about it. But that's for another episode. To wrap up a lot of what we talked about, manipulation is the art of altering someone's thoughts, feelings, and beliefs to benefit yourself. This is a short-term tactic. It is not for long-term use. It is highly exploitative and will always screw you over long-term. The reason why people manipulate is either because they grew up in an environment that required them to learn to manipulate to survive, or they work in an environment that requires high levels of manipulation. You'll also see manipulation where individuals want resources, influence, and advantage, power, status, particularly if people feel that there's a scarcity or a limit to those resources. The things we want to look out for when it comes to manipulation is triangulation. When the manipulator brings in a third party to team up on us, or use that third party to deflect. We don't really know what they're trying to do. Just be aware that when you're talking to somebody and they're bringing in a third party, have your little antenna up. Be like, that's interesting. We need to understand ourselves and our weakness, because again, they will prey upon that. We need to be aware of coercion, which is making the person believe that the consequences of not doing what you want are worse than doing what you want. When somebody comes to you and they sound so rational, it's time to stop and think, what is going on here? Be aware of isolation. When your social circle is shrinking, it's time to think about that. Why is it shrinking? What is going on there? When somebody's feeding you an emotion that you don't have or an opinion that you don't have, you need to stop and think about that. You need to think about, why are they feeding me this emotion? What is going on here? When you feel that your sense of reality is being warped and you feel that your perspective is off, you need to ground yourself and talk to your support network to get a clear picture of what is going on. And lastly, we need to be aware of social comparison when they try to compare us with someone that we idolize or look up to, or someone else of influence and power. Again, we are being manipulated. There are many other tools that a manipulator can use. These are just the handful that I see used quite regularly. I hope this episode was helpful to you. I shall see you guys in the next episode where we talk about positivity. Cheers. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, give it a like, and share it with a friend. And if you're ready to take the next leap and improve your leadership skills, head over to www.seedingthelead.com and book your free coaching session today.